everyone. Welcome to Spirit Switchboard. I'm your host, Kerrilynn Shellhorn, and you are joining us live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM. Thank you so much for joining us. Last week, we did the replay with Patty Negri. Thank you, everybody that listened in. I was at the Lake Superior Paracon. It was a lot of fun. It was super interesting. There's lots to chat about that. I think I'm going to have Gail and Mel back on so we can talk about all of the experiences that we had. Met lots of new people, which was super exciting. Yeah, it's been crazy. I had an event in Sault Ste. Marie. I forgot that it's Thanksgiving weekend, and so I'm actually doing events all weekend. October is always such a crazy month, spooky month. I think we're actually, it's almost like every second, I think it's every second day, except for a couple of days, but every second day there's events happening for me. Hi, Heidi. It's nice to see you. Oh, Z Sun Dragon. Thank you. It's so nice to see you. Yeah, it's been a while since I've been able to connect with you. Hi, Tanya. Hi, Michelle. Michelle was so helpful and kind to me at the Paracon in Thunder Bay. I was so happy to see you there. Hi, James. Wizard Radio FM. Oh my gosh. That's so fun that you're watching from your YouTube channel. Hi, Karen. Thank you for being here. Hi, Julie. So I have one thing that I would like to share with you guys. A couple of things, maybe. Newsletter, please sign up for the newsletter. If you head to the website, which is just kerrylynshellhorn.com, you can sign up for the newsletter. It's going to let you know where I'm at, what's going on, the heads up to who's going to be on the show, intuitive tips, all that kind of fun stuff. When I'm on here, I don't always share all the places where I'm going to be because events sell out so quickly. And then when I talk about it and then you can't get the tickets, somebody sends me nasty emails. I just don't want to deal with it. I'm really sorry. So I don't share where things have been sold out. So I do have an event where there's tickets available. It is a charity event. Folks, please come out and see me. It's coming up really quick. October 17th in Port Dover at the Community Center, Port Dover Community Center. It is for the Impact Cheer Athletic. It's the Norfolk division. They are getting their cheer group, competitive cheer group together. Hi, Todd. I'm from Canada too. I'm from outside of Toronto in Guelph. So the Impact Cheer Athletics. So they also have an open abilities team offered as well too, which is super exciting that they make sure that it's an inclusive program. They advertise it from 6 to 9, but I am not sharing messages for 3 hours. So we're just, maybe we'll do like a meet and greet and share messages for a while. 2 hours is about as much as I can handle, honestly. Hi, Kathy. Hi, Cheryl. Thank you for being here. So to explain a little bit about this, a mat for the folks that are in that cheerleading club, the mats that they use are like $4,500 a mat. They need 6 and they have 2. So it is $65 a person. There's light refreshments and snacks, and I hope to see you there. So you can contact Norfolk at impactcheerathletics.com. If you look on my social media, I'll put the links up there for you as well too, for you guys to find your tickets. But it's a charity event. Let's help those girls out. I would appreciate it. I'll post a picture of my high school cheerleading photos too. Oh, crazy times. Okay, get my picture up. Hi, Sue. Let's bring in our guest. I always get excited when this guest comes because the conversations are so great, and just different perspectives. And I was really excited that he was open to chatting um, uh, about dark tourism, haunted locations, and I want to talk about these things on a personal level and professionally as well too. Hi, oh Michelle, the pink paint is not quite finished, but it'll get there. Hi, Steve. So, fan favorite, co-director of the Ontario Paranormal Society and paranormal investigator. Let's bring on Grant Evans. Fan favorite. Everybody gets so excited when you're on.
That's terrifying.
Right?
Thank you for having me. I always have fun coming on your show. Love it.
Thanks. Thank
Hello,
you. Hi,
everybody.
Contessa. Thanks for being here. It's I always have an aha moment, and then I know when I want to have you on the show. I have an experience somewhere out in the public and go, oh, this is stuff we can talk about. And you are always so gracious in coming on and sharing your knowledge and educating, and I appreciate that.
I hope so. Hi, Michelle. Thank you. Yeah, it's I love coming on your show. And what do you learn all this stuff for if not sharing that information, right? So it's a
Yeah,
great
and I think
avenue to
that
share that with people.
I feel we have a responsibility, to help educate people and understand the paranormal world. And the paranormal community has exploded in such a huge, huge way. And we all don't work the same, have same intentions, same directions. And so, it's how do you play nice in the sandbox and I don't know, avoid burnout or frustration, avoid wanting to tap out,
Yeah, it's a real thing for sure. I think a lot of that comes down to your intention too, right? Like when a lot of
Huge.
people they get into it for the excitement and the enjoyment of that, and maybe they're horror fans and just love the genre. But then when they realize how much work it can be, it can cause a bit of burnout. So um, I still I get a bit burnt out from doing the tourist side of things, surprising or not. I actually
Yeah.
enjoy the private cases way more than all the tourism and stuff, but it kind of goes with the territory. For our
Yeah.
team itself, we're doing charity tours. We only do charity tours. We don't do any tours to make money. Our team, as much as I would love to make money doing this, um, we do it all for the charity. So from the beginning of September, mid-September, every weekend our team's been at a location doing a charity event until the
Yeah.
end of October. I think the last one is November 1st. So
You
October
guys
is
were,
quite a
for me, working as a medium, it sort of builds, and October is always busy. It's like the spooky month. But for me, it's just the start because November gets increasingly busy and then December. So for it just, that gearing up in November with people getting together for Christmas and the holidays, or they're gathered. So I find it stays busy for me from the beginning of October until like that first week of January.
Yeah, it's the catalyst, right? It gets everyone excited and kind of
Yeah.
opens them up to more spiritual things, and then they kind of ride it until that season fades, and then it comes cyclical every year. Usually,
Yeah.
our team gets an influx of requests for investigations about like September. They're like, "Oh, can you come next week?" And it's like, "Oh my God, we've been planning events like years in
For
advance."
a
Like,
year. I know. I know. The
it's
same thing happens
gonna be
for
hard.
me. Can you participate in this event? And I'm like, if we're talking 2026, I can put that on now.
Yeah,
Because like I have so much on the calendar for 2025 already. So, I think
and for us, the good
unfortunately
thing
we
too is
have to be pretty proactive, right?
Yeah, and these tours bring a lot of people towards the team for help that may not have found us any other way too. So
Really,
uh,
eh?
yeah, a lot of people after their tour would be like, "Yeah, I just wanted to know I wasn't crazy, and I just wanted to talk to you." And we end up getting a lot of cases just from the tours, like people coming forward and kind of feeling us out to see what we're about too, because it is a big privacy thing, right? So
Well,
when people
where you feel
kind
safe
of
to
do a
be
working
vulnerable.
interview, right? Yeah, it's almost like a working interview for some people. Like they
It,
see what we're about
yeah,
and what the team is, and they see that they can trust you, and then
yeah,
they share their story with you. So
yeah,
it's
yeah. That happens.
it can be a lot of fun.
You guys did an event at the Princess Ave play or the Princess Ave Playhouse in St. Thomas. Did I say that right? I did. Princess Ave
I
Playhouse.
think so.
Yeah, yeah. How is that? Can you talk about it?
Yeah, for sure I can. It was the hosts were great. The Playhouse, the foundation that runs it, they're fantastic people.
I
Um,
agree.
so we went and did a preliminary investigation, and Melissa on our team, one of our head investigators, actually captured a picture of an apparition standing on the top balcony right behind one of the
Uh,
lights, and it looks like an old man kind of leaning forward, which is pretty cool because you rarely catch stuff like that. At
yeah,
least we try to debunk it as much as we can, and we're like, oh yeah, there's no way that's real, or come on, like it's another orb, right? But it's actually
it,
the shape of a person, and the head and the torso are separate from each other, which is pretty cool.
that's awesome.
And then I believe they said there was, I'm trying to remember, there's a name of one spirit that they kind of call it like a collective of spirits that's kind of a trickster there that likes to like mess around and play with your equipment and stuff. And so we don't know if that was potentially the person we captured, but we really where we got the most activity on our tours was um, in the dressing room where all the props were.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
had it was quite comical because we had an epoch box. I'm not sure if people are familiar with an epoch box. It's a sensor with two lights on it. It's yes or no, but it has its own parameters. You can't physically set it off yourself. It has all of these internal um, components that sense things based on certain parameters. Um, I'm not privy to them because I'm not an engineer or anything like that, but it's mainly like the EMF, I believe, in the environment. And it was funny. We'd pass this box around to people on the tour, and the only people that would get interactions with it was like a young male around 20 years old. In each of the groups, it was like a young male with a beard
Interesting.
or like long flowy hair. And we thought that was quite funny because whatever spirit was there liked picking on like the young men on the tour. So it was pretty funny. Um,
That's
but yeah,
crazy.
it was a good one. We didn't get like crazy other than a picture of that apparition the previous time when we actually ran the tours. Um, Pretty much all the activity we had was in that dressing room, other than a few hits on sensors throughout the building. But um,
Right.
and guests got to try and use a Ouija board too. Usually for the more excitable patrons that want to try something like that, we kind of supervise them and get them comfortable with it. And
Yeah.
um, we've had success on some tours, but it's all about like people's openness and stuff like that. So it's hard to get a group of strangers to all sit down at the same table and be social and comfortable with each other, especially when you're talking about spooky things. So,
I know.
and
I
then
know.
the board itself is intimidating if you're not comfortable with it. So
Yeah.
we get mixed results, and we had a few that maybe made sense, few responses, but usually it was just like incoherent letters back and forth. So,
Mhm.
but everyone enjoyed the tours, and we were able to give back to the Playhouse, which was great. So
That's
we
awesome.
enjoyed doing stuff like that. Yeah. How
This
about
will be
you?
my
You were there
third.
not long ago.
Yeah,
Well, you did that.
this will be my
That's
third
great.
year doing an event there. So the first year I did, an investigation after the gallery event. The second year I didn't, but this year I have a group of people that are staying after to do an investigation as well. And it's always fun. So I'm tapping in for 2 hours and then we do the investigation. So I find it really increases the energy in the space because we're kind of there already. The last time I was there, we didn't do the investigation, but you could hear audibly through my mic, through my headset, a man talking beside me on the stage that wasn't on the stage, like in the physical. So it was like super cool to have had that experience at that time, right?
That's awesome. You think of how much energy is in a like I forget his name, I'm sorry, but the gentleman that I believe him and his wife, if I'm correct, they run the Playhouse or the production team, or they're friends. I'm not sure. I'm sorry if I offend anyone. That's not my intention, but he was saying that there's a myth with every playhouse that there's a ghost light and there's always a ghost haunting every playhouse. So kind of it's funny because every playhouse or theater we've investigated, we've captured stuff like, and there's so much energy expressed in those environments that it almost makes sense, right?
Yeah. And because it was a former church, like the seats are the pews, the windows are at the top, like where that balcony is by the sound room upstairs. Like there's a lot of different places. The basement's kind of creepy as well too, has that heavy energy. Yeah. Okay, so I want to share why dark tourism. Why I want to talk to you about dark tourism, haunted travels, all that fun stuff. And for different reasons. So dark tourism is I didn't even know that it was like a term, to be honest with you. I didn't know it was a term. But grief tourism, there's another one. Do you know? Is it Thana tourism? It's THAN. Not sure. I know that I'm mucking that up. There's another proper term for it, but there's a term for it. But it's for places that where there's death or traumas, that dark history, macabre history that's attached to it. And I recently have been to 3 different locations where I'm doing my thing and tapping in and tapping into layers of those histories, and it didn't necessarily run in alignment in the way that those locations, the narrative that they wanted to promote their location, even though it was accurate, it was just a different layer than what they want, advertised, and how they're profiting off of a certain story for those locations, right? Which kind of lit a fire under me because I'm like, if it's still part of the history attached to this place, but not in the way that they're most profiting from. And it just sparked something in me, like about wanting to have this conversation. And, in locations where spirits may not be respected and profit and not profit. And, are we contributing? Every time we go to a location, we're adding energy to that space and adding another layer to that space. And are we harming, hurting, this social media and YouTube platforms, and our intentions when we go and how we're sharing what we find? How does that all, contribute to that pile? So I just wanted to have that, a conversation with somebody about that. And I chose you. Lucky you.
I've been in a few places, but it's a tough subject because like I draw a bit of a comparison to my team. I do naturally. I'm sorry for that, but we've been doing these charity tours for a very long time, and I would say since maybe just before COVID, the paranormal industry was still pretty thin, I would say. Like there's a lot of hype behind it, a lot of energy behind it with interest from the general public. Um, but as soon as some locations realize it's profitable, then they run with it. And there's a lot of agencies or teams or groups or businesses that um, that I wouldn't say like they've realized that it's profitable, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
that can be it's become its own industry now. Like there's so many towns that we've been approached, like St. Thomas where the Playhouse was. The library there brought us there last year, and we did a tour at Purely Wicked, Lockwood Books. And it was a walking tour. It was exciting because that was the first kind of big walking tour we've ever done as a team. We usually do one location. And it
Right.
went really well. Also because we had three different partners, so it was a lot to kind of plan behind it.
Yeah.
Um, and it's exciting because the library and the local said they've been waiting, like people that went to the tour said, we've been waiting years for something like this to happen here, like some kind of tour. And now you can almost any city, at least in southern Ontario, now has a tour of some sort, whether it's like ghost walks. I know
Yeah.
they're very, very famous in Ontario, if not further than that. Um, and it's great because it helps share history, and I love local history too.
Me
Um,
too.
but it becomes hard in the industry because now there's locations that um, will almost I'm not trying to say it, like they'll have a deal with like a team, so only that team can go there,
Which limits,
and it
which
limits
limits.
things. Yeah, or like there's um, some locations because now they're so infamous because of all of everything that's gone into it, charge insane amounts to come in, and it's like, well, if you're a researcher and you're trying to prove something, you're not doing it to gain some kind of profit from it. It becomes unobtainable, right? Like
Yeah.
there's one
And when
location
you're,
in
if you're
Toronto we were trying to do,
researching,
yeah, and it's they wanted us to have insane amount of insurance money, and they want us to put like a $5,000 deposit. I'm like, we're not filming a TV show, like
well, some
we're
places
just
won't
coming.
even. I approached a few places to check, and I don't bring a lot of people and do a lot of public things. It's usually just, for myself because I want the experience in those historical places, right? And
Yeah,
anyway, but they wouldn't let me
so
in if I didn't have a TV show. They were very specific about not letting me in unless I had a TV show,
wow,
and I get such a chip on my shoulder, and I'm like, meh, then I don't need to. Like I'm just gonna find somewhere else because I don't align with that sort of mentality. So I don't need to go there. But I
good.
mean,
But I think that kind of rolls into the stories of some locations changing for effect, right? Like you're saying, you go and
yes,
you experience the opposite of what the claims are. A lot of that goes into that factor of this location, or perhaps like an industry, like, well, now we want to capitalize on it. We see an opportunity. Well, I've been into
yeah.
locations where same kind of thing, like it's all over the internet, and then you go there and you talk to some locals, and they're like, that's not the truth. That's not
This
what
is
happened.
it.
Like
Where
this
the
is
folklore has become a truth, but there's no proof to the folklore.
for sure. And the investigation side is huge of that, right? Doing some research and trying to dig up
Well,
things, and then yeah,
when you're researching, you want to go 2 or 3 times and be able to try to reproduce or try something new, like in order to really dig deep and be able to debunk or look at it in different layers. And you can't if you're having to pay an extraordinary amount of money in order to be able to get in. And I find uh, yeah, not all groups play nice in a sandbox.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm.
that makes it challenging, right? Like, trying
Yeah.
to yeah, maneuver in a respectful way, as well too. Because and it's reputation. I was thinking about that as well too, right? And when we're working really hard to work from a place of integrity and our reputation is really important to us, um, not wanting to align ourselves with places that are okay with perpetuating stories that cannot be um, validated or proven. Um, I'm probably stepping into a big pile of poo tonight. It's like
Nasty emails or something.
Kerrilynn.Shellhorn@gmail.com, folks. That's where you do it.
Talking to you. I know you are. No, we're not. General statement. Where
Yeah, I'm not directing it at any one particular group or calling those people out, but it it is challenging,
the other, like, aside from that people's intentions matter, right? Um, and if you're in the field long enough, you see those people that come in guns a blazing, and they fade quick too, right? So um, if you're looking at something as someone that wants to go and experience dark tourism and stuff like that, like, do your own research and even into the group that's running it, and then you'll be able to tell based on their history, right? Like anything in life, when you're looking up reviews of, like, hey, I want a good doctor. Well, how do you know they're a good doctor? Well, you look into it, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you want someone to help you, look for a team that has that reputation.
Wow.
Sorry, ranting, rambling.
Oh no, that's okay. Me too. And again, I always am trying to be careful about how I rant, how the words I'm using, because that matters as well too, right? And trying to articulate what
For
it is.
sure.
And is there a solution? Is there, do we change that? And I think that we can slowly over time and where we invest. And so these sort of conversations and helping people understand that underbelly to it so they can make choices. I mean, I love going to dark tours for sure, but careful about where I go and understanding what the intentions of a place is as well too. Yeah, if they're accepting money, so it's yeah, to help
I think
renovations for
it's
the
also,
space to maintain the
yeah,
upkeep. If it's just about the money for their own personal benefit, I tend to stay away from it.
for sure. Like, been to some fantastic locations where they're trying to restore the building, or they're just trying to maintain it as is and respect the land. Like, that's huge in my books, as opposed to someone just doing it as a business, right?
Yeah,
And we'll talk. Sure, we're going to talk more about those as our conversation
yeah.
evolves.
Um,
So,
Ted, are you comfortable sharing where Tanya? We don't have to. I know where you share those stories. So Tanya is just saying, so valid. I tell ghost stories at a site, and I'm always honest about whether the rumors have merit or not. And I think that's the important part. Is just saying I don't know, right? I don't know. These are rumors and transparency, right? As long as we're being transparent. And not everybody has that same moral compass and intention with certain locations for sure. But I think certain dark uh, tourism locations push us in an uncomfortable way to have conversations, right? Like where we can learn more about history. Some people need the visuals of those places, like more than a textbook, so that we're not repeating those same um, stories. Oh, that's so good. Tanya is just sharing part of the proceeds go back to the heritage site while others are part. of the business. Are you comfortable if I share, Tanya?
It's good. It's a partnership, right?
Yeah.
No.
Does your Oh, it's okay. I just wanted to make sure it was okay. So she gives tours at Castle Kilbride.
I've
That's
been
where
trying to
she
get in
gives
there
her
for
tours.
years myself.
Well, you come walk Castle Kilbride in Baden.
Yeah, it's I myself have been trying to get into there to do an investigation, probably off and on for about 10 years, and the owner um, wasn't really into it, and then that organization was able to get access to that, which is fantastic. Um, the security guards, because I have a friend who's on the team casually, is a police officer, and he knew all the security guards that would work there at night, and they would terrified of that place at nighttime. But all the rumors, like it's very like Dundering Castle. There's a lot of stories, but I've been told that the tour guides aren't supposed to talk about the dark history or the supernatural unless they're doing a supernatural tour. Castle Kilbride is very similar. Like they weren't allowed to talk about it, from my understanding. So now that they are, I think that's fantastic. Um, but
So
yeah, that top spiral staircase is kind of the hot spot from what I'm aware of.
Tanya's just saying you can even go on your own for a self-guided tour. Don't have to do the site. Send me an email. I can ask the curator for you.
Oh, very cool. Yeah,
So we can connect each other. We can connect you guys up. Cindy's just saying, oh, that's not far from me. I'll have to check that out. So, but have you gone to so I've been to a number of places that have that sort of dark history, just as just to walk around and pick up on things, and not necessarily like a proper investigation, sort of. Yeah, just leaning in and seeing what I'm picking up, not pulling out a recorder and doing an EVP blast in that moment, but just like, you can pick up those different from, vibes off of places, which open the door actually. And there's some places that were open and allowing me to lean in. One of like the Warden's Museum in Kingston, across from the Kingston Penitentiary, that I had more stuff happen in that place than I did going through Kingston Pen, which was just a guided tour, right? And you're right. When we did the tour at Kingston Penitentiary, they have a script that they have to follow that they're not allowed to deviate from. And the guide that I had, she was pretty good though, because I would ask a specific question like, is there a reason why I would be seeing this in this space? And she would say, how would she do it? She would say, no, but she's like nodding her head yes. Like, trying to subtly give me the information without overly sharing, right? The
Sure.
museum, the Warden's Museum is loaded because there's original shanks, it's original stuff. Have you been to it, Grant?
I have not been to that one, no.
Oh,
Almost every story that I've heard from people investigating penitentiaries or jails is the warden's house is always more haunted.
yeah, that's what I
Like
found.
always.
And the tunnels in that section are super crazy. And it wasn't really an investigation that I was doing. They just allowed me to walk through and then share what I was getting. I mean, I don't always do that, but there was just so much. So they were really great about following behind and just validating what I was getting and adding to the story, which was great. And I didn't have to.
They
It
probably
was so fun.
yeah, right? To validate them too, right?
Yeah, this is it. Yeah, so that was exciting. Um, where did I want to go with this? Yeah, sharing the truthful stuff that comes up too, right? Like I think some history is super uncomfortable for people in those dark tourism places, whether they are the the castle up there, Grant. We need to go together. Do you want to? We need to
Yeah,
make a date with Tanya and head to Castle Kilbride.
totally. I'd love to do an over. I love the walk arounds, but I'm all about the full on for a location like that and overnight. Like I love that. Like my team's has so many reference letters from museums doing stuff. So
Yeah.
I'd love to do an overnight there. Would be a lot of fun. And the Tim Hortons, I think, is 24 hours right beside it, so it's
Is it
fantastic. Yeah.
really? um, do you approach them differently if you're going? Do you always go knowing that you're representing the tops team, or do you go like? Is it always personal and professional? Is it? Do you know what I'm asking? I'm probably not asking that in the way that.
I kind of get what you're throwing down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Like if you're going just on your own to check places out, do you approach it differently than if you were going with people from the tops team, or are some of these locations are they always with the tops team?
um, More recent ones have always been with the tops team because we're either trying to make a connection to
Right.
do something with them or to gain access. Like, here's our business card. This is the introduction, like your business meeting, right?
Like the
Um,
networking aspect of it.
but some of the more favorite ones I've done have actually been like no expectations, spur of the moment. I don't even know what I'm getting into. And then just going out and I've had and not really even having a game plan, just going out and saying, you know, we have our equipment. Like the one location we did Sweet Springs in August, um,
Mm.
because we're so bent on and trying to gather evidence and prove something to a client. When you're doing a private case, it's very professional. Like
Yeah.
you have cameras on cameras and audio and review, and when you're doing something for yourselves, it relieves that pressure, and it almost, in some sense, I think, it lowers your shield to get your barriers a little bit, and I think you can almost have more of an experience sometimes when you do stuff like that.
Well, I think that when you're relaxing more, you're not holding yourself so tight. Just from my perspective,
Mhm.
and they can feel that. So you know, if you look at spirits, if there's going to be spirits there, they were people too. So if they feel somebody that's tense, we don't know if we're triggering something for them, so they hold back because they're feeling that tension as well too. Like they wait. Sometimes it's when you're being in a playful mood, they'll interact.
Yeah.
That's the red roofed building, right? If I look at those pictures, do you want me to bring the pictures up?
Uh, sure, if you want. You can talk about our trip
That's one.
and the Ontario Paranormal Society's trip we did in August with our teammates. When we do a lot of these investigations, if we get any kind of donations to the team, it pays for the supplies and stuff. But we've tried to do something every year, a big trip. We started doing that again, trying to plan a location and saying, hey, we're going to go here. And this year we planned out to go to Sweet Springs Resort in West Virginia, which most big paranormal fans like watch Project Fear, Destination Fear, all those shows. They kind of that was one of their first locations they did and kind of made it infamous. So um, we thought, hey, we'll
Grant,
try out there, and they're super reasonable with their fees and stuff. So
um, is it? I just want to make sure. The one where you have a group
the
photo in the front?
That one or the picture of just the building itself. You can always start with that, or me on the stairs,
Okay.
or it's very exciting for all the people listening on their cars, waiting for a picture. But
Right.
yeah, I could talk about it. It was the Sweet Springs Resort is what it's called now, and the owner is actually a fantastic gentleman, and it's run by him. The security guard, tour guide, lives across the street. He's hilarious. We loved meeting him. Um, so it's just a picture of me at the front steps. Lisa on our team took it. She's like, let's make a professional photo and be kind of serious. And we always joke because I'm always laughing. I can't keep a straight face ever. So this is me on the front steps. And the one episode, I think, of Project Fear, they're sitting there doing an interview and they actually heard knocking on that specific door from the inside when no one was in there. So I'm like, this will be perfect, right? Um, so yeah, we went there. Our team went there for 4 nights. If you want me just to kind of run with it,
Yeah. Yeah.
we went there for 4 nights, and the picture of the house with the red roof. This is the main building there. It looks a lot bigger
Okay.
from the TV shows and the YouTube videos. When you're actually in it, like it's pretty much like a U-shaped building. Um, like two kind of 3 stories, I believe it was, U-shaped building. Um, oh, thanks, Mohammed. Um,
So this is when I say, just hang on a second. We're just gonna have to flush the toilet for a second.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
We're just gonna get rid of this really quickly, and then we'll bring up
Um,
that picture for you to keep going.
yeah, that's okay. So, um, we 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 were in the main building for 2 nights, and we stayed on the property for 4 nights. Um, and as for our team's perspective, this whole dark tourism thing, we wanted to see if those shows were legit or making up stuff because a lot of these TV shows, if you've ever spoken to any of the actors or the people participating, a lot of this stuff you're paid for a product. So the studio gives you X amount of dollars per episode, and you're expected to provide a result. So if you've investigated on any kind of level, you'll realize that a lot of locations will give you absolutely nothing. So it's very unlikely that you're going to get all this activity. So we thought, well, you know what, there's been enough emphasis on this location. Let's try and see if we can recreate what they've done on the TV shows
Oh,
and attest to those theories or
yeah.
add our own experiences. So this was the house that's on the property that they've converted it into a bed and breakfast type thing. You make the breakfast though. Um, so it was a great building. It is actually the original homestead from what I understand. And the people that built the main building actually was built by slaves. They made the bricks on the property, and the boiler in the building is so big they had to build the building around it.
That's
So that's how old
interesting.
it is. And
But a lot of
this
times
was the
the
main.
outbuildings, their purpose has changed over times as well too, and the energy builds up on those, and getting like not as. I'm glad that did you investigate in here too?
We chose not to because we were sleeping in there every night. Um,
Oh,
but our biggest interactions were actually in the house.
yes,
How
I was
do I
gonna
talk it
say
about kind of
that
when
outbuildings
things
have a
happen
lot of
when you
energy
when
that
you
builds up.
don't but when you don't expect it too, like um so yeah, we were in the main building for 2 nights, and one of the nights you can hear it sounds like people running up and down the hallways. Um, there was bats in the building, so those scared us a couple of times. And then you kind of get all jittery, and you're like, okay, it's just a bat. And then something else happens, then automatically you're in the trying to rule it out. So it
Yeah.
becomes this kind of emotional roller coaster to some degree. But we heard a lot of stuff. The second night we were there, we actually had more stuff. The nurses station at the very top because they converted it into a nursing home for a couple of years. Um, we kind of congregated in the middle of the team. There's 6 of us, and we have this epoch box above one of our investigator Don's heads, and he's got beautiful long hair. It's wonderful. I wish I could grow long hair. Um, and he's like, something feels weird kind of around my head. And we're all kind of like, okay, Don, whatever, because he's the skeptic on the team. And we're like, we wanted things to pick on him, if anyone, because we want him to experience things. So,
Right.
um, and he's like, I feel kind of like some static electricity around my head. And the sensor was going off and on its own manner. And then all of a sudden, he felt a lock of his hair actually lift up by itself.
Oh.
And two of our teammates that were sitting right in front of him actually saw it happen too. So like you had validation and something quite interesting happened. Like any kind of physical manifestation to me is super rare. So when that happened, it kind of got us all like fired up, and we are all like extremely excited, right? Um, and then we heard like down one hallway there was another team that got a picture of what looked like a hand coming out of a bathtub. And down that hall, we actually heard a woman scream a few times, and no one was up there. And we had, of course, our own Scooby Doo moments where we scared each other, like not on purpose,
Right.
because someone into a room without telling someone else, or
Oh.
but
But
yeah,
even
I mean,
in those moments, then you end up laughing. Even like with a bat, like you laugh after you get the scare moment, you get the jump scare, and then you laugh. And I think that helps amp up the energy in the space.
for sure,
Is
yeah.
this
Don's the one on the left there with the long hair, so you can
yeah.
imagine it's below his shoulder. So for a little lock of
Yeah.
his hair to lift up about halfway up his head is pretty intense. So it made him kind of more of a believer. And then there's
Wow.
Lisa and Jen and I, and Jen's the other co-director. But my I joke with people and I say that I made a rookie mistake at this location. Um,
And what's the rookie
so
mistake?
the second night, we were all outside, kind of catching a little break from being inside for an hour or two. And I said, you know what? I said to the team, I said out loud, that all of these people claim to see apparitions and people running towards them or screams. I said, I would love for that to happen to me. I would love for an apparition or a scream to happen. Like this is our second night here. Like I just want something big. And I set the stage for myself. So the funny thing with that, about 10 seconds after I said that, we actually heard a scream outside, and we were like, no way, like there's no way that happened right after you said that. Like that's ridiculous. Like the skeptics start coming out, like there's no way, right? So we're listening again and we hear it again. I'm like, oh, that's got to be an animal. We're in the middle, like we don't even have cell phone signals at this location. That's how kind of remote it is in West
Right.
Virginia. And so we hear it, and then we keep waiting. We hear it again, and I'm like, that's got to be a coyote or something eating an animal. And then we actually heard it respond, a scream and then a scream as a response. We're like, okay, it's definitely an animal, but it was enough to get us kind of laughing, right? Because the timing was so perfect, and we'd already been there. Like that was our third night there, and we never heard that noise before, so it was interesting. But that led into like the hair getting lifted. We heard screams inside. We heard banging. Like a lot of activity was happening in the main building, and then we
Right.
went back to to this house here, um, where we slept and just kind of had social hour. Like it's funny when you wrap up an investigation at 5 in the morning and you say, "Hey, I want to crack a beer," right? Just to kind of wind down at 5 in the morning. If you're a
Yeah.
shift worker, you totally understand. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, we're just enjoying the night, and then we had one more night to just kind of recuperate because the drive home was about 10 hours to
Mm.
back where we live, and that's if the border was forgiving and not tying us up for a long period of time. So
Right.
the last night, the fourth night, we said we're going to go to bed early. We're going to wake up early, drive through the day. We avoid traffic. And that night, we all went to bed probably between 10 and 11. And I woke up in my room, and I was in my room by myself. And I heard some rustling. Like we had bought some stuff at like Target because that's what you do when you go to the States. You try to find deals, whether they're deals or not. You think they are, so you buy stuff
Right.
that you don't need. And
No.
I heard some
I am
rustling in a
not that
plastic
way.
bag. I'm never that way all the time. So I heard some rustling in a plastic bag that had some stuff I bought in there, and I was like, what it like okay, maybe a mouse got in my belongings. I'm gonna check them to make sure nothing's destroyed. So I wake up, I turn the light on, look around, and nothing nothing was there. Like when I flicked the light on, I didn't see a mouse scurry out of the bag or anything. So I thought, oh, whatever, that's weird. I'm just gonna go back to bed. So I went back to sleep and then woke up again at 4 in the morning to hearing metal dragging in the room. And I was like, my my skeptical side of me that I still have is okay, like maybe a mouse grabbed a piece of my jewelry or something and is dragging on, trying to steal something. But it sounded, when I thought more about it, I'm like, no, that's like something heavy, like a metal chair or metal pipe or something.
Right.
Um, like, okay, that's weird. I'm gonna get my flashlight on my phone. I'm gonna turn over and get my phone and shine the light to see what's going on in my room. And when I turned on my left side on the bed, I felt the bed behind me get pushed down the mattress as if someone sat there. And then I felt the blanket pull up as well. So right away I was like, nope, grabbed my phone, ripped it out of the wall, and turned back, and I actually saw the shape of a person standing beside my bed. Um,
Uh,
right away, like
Personal
if anyone's ever had,
experiences, right?
yeah, if anyone's ever had anything happen like from that sleep awake or just before bed, it's no matter how seasoned you are, it always scares you. I don't care who you are, it always scares you.
Mhm.
At least I believe that. So it unnerved me right away. And I said, nope, you got to go. Like, this is my last night. This is not happening. Like, you got to go. Um, it ended up going away. Um, but then, and then my skeptical side of my brain started kicking again. I said, okay, is that because there's a scientific state where your brain wakes up before your body? It's common with sleep paralysis
Yeah.
that your brain, based on your biases, tries to make sense of the environment around it. And if you see a shadow from a tree or something, you assume it's a person. So my brain's starting to think this way, like there's got to be an explanation. Like I don't know if I really felt that or not, but
Right.
it still had that rattling effect. And when I looked again at the bed, I felt the sheet lift after the bed pushed down. So I thought, okay, well, I'll look at the blankets to see like what's going on with that. And I was underneath two blankets, and only the top blanket was tented. So if I was to do that myself from underneath my blankets, both sheets would have been lifted, not just the one.
Exactly.
So that validated to me that what I experienced was
Yeah.
legit.
So you
And
could stop gaslighting yourself.
yeah, I was like, no,
Like,
this really happened. But
yeah.
my natural process is to try and like prove like it's not real, right? So
Yeah.
it startled me, and I ended up literally staying up from 4 o'clock until we left that day. I did not go back to bed. I was so shaken. Like I literally um, said some protection prayers and cleansed the room. I didn't want this thing coming home with me either. Like I'm going home this day, and you can't come with me. Like you already scared me. You're staying here, right? Um, did some prayers and stayed up and made a pot of coffee. And I was out on that porch at 4 in the morning with the cows. Like it was, I could not go back to bed. The cool thing too about that is there was a team in the main building that night that wasn't affiliated with us because they rented out. Um, and when we left that morning to check out, we talked to the people running it, and we said, "So, did the team share anything with you?" And he said, "Oh yeah, the team said they're using a spirit box, and a male voice came through saying scared them, like when they were
Oh.
doing the like, oh, like, whatever it was jumping back and forth. It was communicating with them, but it was playing jokes on us. And the
Yeah.
other director on the team said she woke up around 2 o'clock that night and heard footsteps walking around her room, thought we were pranking her. So she woke up, turned the
Oh,
lights on, nothing was there. But I didn't know that until like after I told her what I went through. So the
right.
entire night, if you did chronologically, was quite insane because of the sequence of events. It is very fascinating. Um,
So, see, Sun Dragon is saying that's trippy cool. Um,
it'd be scary cool.
yeah, Michelle is saying um, jarring.
Yeah, and I had so many other people I shared that story with, and they said, "Well, didn't the investigator side of you come out? Didn't you want to get your devices out?" And I was like, "No, no way. I wanted it to go. I did not want it to stay there with me. Like, if this was like not my last night there, I totally would have tried to maybe invest. Or why didn't you ask it a question?" I said, "That's the question. I didn't ask a question. I gave it what I wanted, which was not to be continued to be interacted with in that manner. And if something's friendly to me, it's not something that wants to scare you. So something that
But was it trying to scare you or just get your attention? Like
that's the
the
debate,
very
right?
it is a debate. My grandma, when we would sleep at her house when we were little, she would shake our big toe and lift it up in the morning when our breakfast was ready, right? And so years later, after she had died, three of us had had experiences where our foot was being shook and our foot was being lifted, and it was totally like our grandma. But even then, it was like the first time that happened, I lifted my blanket up and moved it over my head. It was like, thanks so much, grandma, but no, like, it's okay. We don't need you to lift my foot up. But those personal experiences really, I don't know. I think it pushes more activity, and I think where that spirit was saying scared them. I think they find it funny too, right? You don't know if
Yeah,
it's like somebody that's a a prankster or bullyish, and so
yeah.
they feed off of that, right?
What's the intention, right? And why wait till the last night to do it? Like,
Yeah, or they're happy to see you go.
yeah,
They
yeah,
just
that's true.
they're tired too, right? Like they just want to,
Or they just want you to leave with something profound and share that, right? So
yeah,
that more people visit. Like, it's hard to say.
yeah.
But that location, it's West Virginia. I think someone was asking
Yeah,
where.
I'm sorry. I just put it up for you again. Sweet
It's West
Springs, right?
Virginia, Sweet Springs. I think they used to call it Sweet Springs Sanitarium. It's Sweet Springs Resort now, because the owner's trying to. He rents it out, and the money they make from renting the building for investigations, they're revitalizing it, and he wants to restore it, which I think is super noble. He's not doing it to get rich. He's trying to do it to restore history to the location,
Which
which
I
I
think
love.
is a great way to discern where you want to spend your money and your energy. What is the
Hmm.
intention behind um, them opening up their space for people to investigate? Cindy is just asking, do you find most places you investigate have little or no cell service?
No, I would say that's the first place in a long time that I've been to that has absolutely no cell service. Um,
But having no cell service also adds a level of intensity to a place as well too. Like you
yeah,
know
a little
you're
anxiety.
yeah,
I
you're
made
on.
sure I built a first aid kit with some special medicine in it in case we needed it. But it's like you have no cell service. How are you calling if someone gets hurt? You're in these
Yeah.
facilities that are potentially dangerous.
Seas and Dragons just showing her the floor creak as though someone was there too tired for this, went back to sleep. Nothing physical was there, so all the cats were asleep. um, oh, Allie, I'm so happy that you're here. She's saying, very cool. What a great experience.
Hi, Ollie. Yeah, it was
There was another
fantastic.
question. Sorry, I just want to double check and make sure that we go. No, maybe we did get it.
Yeah,
Allie's
so
Allie lives. Allie, are you close to Tombstone? Because I think like, and you did the bird cage too, right, Allie? I'm just trying to. I want to make sure that I'm doing that correctly. But like those locations, like the history. There's so much history attached to it. People do tours of Chernobyl now.
yeah, that's terrifying. There's a great series on Netflix about dark tourism where they've gone to like all of those day like not just they're physically dangerous too. Like,
Yeah,
so people that are that extreme and like that, but
Yeah, Allie used to work at the birdcage. Allie, you should come on the show and share your stories. Let's do it.
Oh yeah, no, it's and so yeah, for the team doing that location, and two of our teammates, they love all the tourism. They went to like two or three other locations on the road trip. They really went ham out on it, and they went to, was it West Virginia, Penn, and then another
Trans
location. But
Allegheny, have you were
yeah,
there?
they went to Allegheny, and then they went to um, the other penitentiary. I think it was West. I think it's just West
West
Penn.
Moundsville.
But
Moundsville is another one
their
that's been
daytime.
on every show.
Yeah, they love the day tours, and the guides were awesome, they said. But they also found a location that I'm sure I saw it many times watching shows, but it wasn't in the back of my mind. All they said was, "Hey, we're gonna go check out a haunted amusement park. Are you guys in?" And we're like, "Heck yeah, we want to go." And
Yeah.
that kind of led us to Lake Shawnee while we were there, which wasn't too far away. I think it was about an hour and a half away from where we were. I wasn't driving, so I wasn't paying attention at the time, but it was very close. And that location, we stumbled. Well, I felt like for me personally, it was like we stumbled upon that location. Um, and lo and behold, it's one of the top 10 most haunted places in the United States of America. I've
I
been, what
think
is the guy? I believe the guy was Chris. He was amazing. I loved him. He was so good. And he owns the land. But this is a picture of Lake Shawnee, and one of the big. We went during the daytime because we had booked Sweet Springs for a night, so we didn't want to not investigate one location that we already paid for, type thing, right? There's been, I think he said, Chris, I believe his name is. He said there's been 18 different shows that have filmed there. There's been video games that have 3D mapped the location and inserted that location into video games. Um,
so. What
so
did
this
that?
place super famous, and I was like, "Oh, I've never heard of you before." Looking like a weird tourist, right? Like I've seen it on Jack Osborne's show, and I thought that was great. But they've had like crazy infamous psychics there, and um, it was a big swimming pool resort for its prime. And there's some children that died tragically in the pool, drowned. There's this swing is infamous because this is where a young female child died because a delivery van backed out into the flight path of the swings when it was operating, and she hit it, and that's the swing they believe she died on. So it's
Wasn't
kind of the one thing I find about American tourism is that makes me feel kind of strange is a lot of these locations become shrines. Like I'm not sure if you've
yeah.
noticed that.
Yes.
There's a lot
And
of respect in shrines, and people bring gifts all the time. And for me in like Southern Ontario, I don't see this really in Ontario. But every location I've been to in the United States, there's always some form of giving back, which I find that's very interesting. Like, so this there's been children's toy. There's a whole picnic table covered in stuffed animals and toys to honor this girl, and to let her know that she's not forgotten, which I think is beautiful. But she also there's pinwheels like on the ground. There's a pinwheel, and when there's no breeze there, she communicates by turning the pinwheels, which is super cool to see when there's absolutely no breeze in the area and you're trying to do spirit communication
yeah.
and the pinwheels turn. Like it's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie, it's really cool because it's traditional. It's a traditional form of communicating.
Yeah.
It
It's
doesn't
like a
have those
candle
technical,
spinner, right? It would work similar
uh,
to a candle spinner when you can get it to stop
but it's
and
not all these
completely stop and go the other way.
it's not like a phone that can be manipulated on an app or like it's just
Yeah.
pure physical energy and it's really cool and so we did this walking tour and we got to the space between the swing structure. I think there's a few more. There's a Ferris
Oh,
wheel.
yep. Sorry.
There's only two rides that are still there, the Ferris wheel and the swing, and then there's like a slide. Um, because when it shut down, they sold off all the rides, and those were the only rides that didn't sell. and they've had numerous pictures of apparitions on both structures and stuff, which is really cool. Um, so we're kind of standing in between there. And a lot of daytime tours, my instinct is I'm not really going to get a lot because we're there to experience the history and share the stories. Um, and another patron in the tour took a picture, and was telling everyone like, "Oh, I caught some like an orb or something paranormal on my photo," and I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, of course you did." And like, okay, because that's my brain is everyone. I'm a skeptic until I'm proven otherwise. Even though I believe in all of this stuff, like you really have to prove
How
it.
we
So
should be.
so she was talking to everyone, and then we got at the end of the tour. Chris, the guide, shows us all of his pictures that people have given him, and he said, "Don't take a picture of my stuff. This is why people come to the tour, so that way we can make money to preserve this land and keep it going. So please don't take a picture of my evidence." But he had pictures very similar to this from other teams and other things. And there's just me. We get back to the main kind of patio covered area, and this woman keeps talking about it. And in the slideshow, she's like, "I have something that's almost identical to your picture you're showing us." Excuse me. So she showed him, and he's like, "Yeah, like that's it." And right in front of me is where the swing is. So
So you're facing the swing?
I'm facing the swing, and I felt kind of like this like calm sensation. I wouldn't say like I felt like a spirit per se, but I felt like comfortable in that space. I didn't feel threatened. I felt like a warm sensation, like when you see your grandparents
Yeah.
or something like that. You go visit, right? And and when we're at this pavilion and she's talking about it, and then she's like, I was trying to make conversation with the other people on the tour. Like, "Hi, I'm on a team. Here's my business card. Check us out too. Just trying to network." And she goes, "Yeah, the picture is of you." And I'm like, "What do you mean it's a picture of me?" She's like, "Yeah, it's above you." And I'm like, "Okay, well now I guess I got to look at it now, right?"
Yeah.
Showed me, and this white kind of, to me, it almost looks like a bat, like the shape of a bat. Like that's my brain processes that everyone's got their pareidolia. You try to make
Yeah.
things look away, right? To me, that looks like a wing and something, perhaps, right? But um, the sun wasn't beaming through. There's no flare on the lens. She took pictures before and after that didn't have this, so maybe that was the spirit in that space. But I can tell you that it shouldn't be there. I can tell you that much.
Well, you are the
But
only male in your household. You are right. Like you just have your girls. There's the girls. Your wife. Maybe she felt comfortable with you. If this is her.
yeah, it could have been. And there's stories that he shared where the girl has grabbed the spirit girl has grabbed the hands of children guests on the tour, and they've walked around and skipped around and danced. And when they asked the child after, like, "Oh yeah, that's I'm talking to so and so," and so she's a spirit that they believe interacts frequently with people there. So maybe that was my experience with her. I just thought that was super fascinating because on my day tours, like I said, I never anticipate something to actually happen. I find it more of the historical sharing, um,
Right.
like any walking tour during the day. So
It's a
it was
very
really
cool picture.
cool. And yeah,
I'll
that
bring up.
location was great. And the other side of that is that they found a native burial ground that predates the death of Jesus. Like it's over 2,000 years old, this encampment that they dug up because they used to do mud bog races there on the property, but they had to move it because it was too close to the road and it was getting too dangerous for the people that would show. So they decided to move it, and when they were digging it up, found skeletons. And they
Oh.
discovered the university came and dug up and did an excavation, and they said like they predated Jesus, and the natives that lived there were there like during ancient Rome times and stuff. Like that's how old this tribe was. So the history of this land is incredible. And he said like as long as people keep coming and sharing the stories, um, that money preserves the land. He's like, I could easily just bulldoze everything and build a city here, but I'm not because the land is telling me what it wants to do.
Oh.
I
See.
love that idea. He's
Yes.
like the memorial. He said he wanted to memorialize where they found the burial grounds, and he found this stone that he said looked like a finger pointing to the sky, and he thought, well, that would be beautiful to put that there. Um, and as your or as time went by, the stone sunk in the ground, and when you look at it now, it actually looks like a Native American with a headdress on when you look at it from an angle. So he said, the land is telling me what it wants. He's like, as long as things continue,
Yeah.
I'm more than happy to preserve the land and share the history. And I think that's beautiful. Like, he's not trying to become rich off this tour. He's just trying to maintain the history in the land, which I think is beautiful. And anyone that loves paranormal stuff, I encourage them to go here because it was such a great location, and the intentions are super good here.
And the history that's forgotten about. I think, like, for some of these locations, like the burial grounds that were forgotten about, and history that has, been forgotten about, that came up adds another layer to this location, right? And is it folklore, or am I not remembering correctly? Isn't there a vehicle on that property too? Like an older vehicle that's supposed to have a story attached to it?
There is a bus there that because they do a big Halloween event there too, fundraiser, I
Oh.
believe. So there's a bus there that I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, his brother drove before his brother passed away, and it's on the property.
Yeah. So again, that still adds a layer. Like everybody that comes to a location adds their energy to it, and his story is like his personal story is part of the land's story as well. Like
Yeah, and there's
he's
the
living
land is
there,
so
right?
ancient. Yeah, the
Yeah.
land is so ancient. It has even more. Like, I don't want to tell you everything that they shared because I want you to go too. Like, I think
Yeah.
it's worth
Yeah.
going. Anyone
Yeah.
listening, go support this cause because it's
Sea
beautiful.
Sun Dragon is
I
showing
mean,
the
the time
land,
back to
is
your
telling
story.
us what it wants. Love that. Tanya was just
Yeah,
asking, it's hard because sometimes it feels like trauma commodification, not your work. I just mean some places.
yeah, they're trying to benefit off of traumatic events, right? But no, um, yeah, this location really, really impressed me, and it was one that I stumbled across through teammates. Like, I would have never gone there unless they suggested it. So I'm very grateful for that.
And
And
it's
it's weird how
one you would go back to.
100%. And you can actually go there and spend a night and investigate, but you have to sleep in your car or bring a tent or an RV. So um, if you really want to go that one step farther into the dark tourism, go put up a tent in this haunted amusement park and see what happens.
I would put up a tent in a haunted amusement park.
Yeah, I would, but if things happen, you're in a tent. You're still in a tent.
Yeah.
So, um,
But it would be
yeah,
interesting. It would be interesting to see. Definitely strong energies season.
yeah,
I
they
just have
do.
to do this. We've been talking, and I have forgotten to do our station ID, so I just need to take a quick second while we switch out the pictures, and I'm going to take a second to do our station ID. So for anyone that is listening and just joining us now, thank you so much for being here. You are listening to Spirit Switchboard. I'm your host, Kerrilynn Shellhorn, and you are listening to us live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM out of New Orleans. And today's guest is returning guest and fan favorite, paranormal investigator and co-director of TOPS, the Ontario Paranormal Society here in Ontario, Grant Evans. Oh, did we freeze, Grant? Are you good? We're just going to switch this out. For those that are in the chat, are there, dark tourism or haunted locations that you guys have been to that you have gone to check out? Ali has been my friend Allie has been, or she lives in Tombstone, and she's worked at the Birdcage, and the Birdcage has been on so many different shows and investigated, and the land and the history that goes attached to it. I think one of the places um, that I have always been interested in is the catacombs in Paris. It just, I don't know, there's a layer to it that feels really sad as well too, like um, having that the trauma. Oh, for sure there is. Hey there.
Made it, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe not. Might have to try again. Ali is showing it's very cool here. We have several ruins around here that have activity as well too. Do you know what? I'm not sure. I think you're back now. I can see you moving. It just seems
Well, okay, that's
to
good.
be. Yeah, well, yeah, there we go. It just seems to glitch a little bit, but we'll roll with it. Are there any close to Sault Ste. Marie? So dark tourism places near Sault Ste. Marie. I don't know any off the top of my head, but I'll probably think of something after the show. But off the top of my head, well, the pictographs, right? I don't know if it's dark. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily dark tourism, but it's a place that has a lot of energy in Lake Superior Park, and somebody just, did graffiti over one section, which is sad, right? Which adds that other layer of, if you're going to go to those places, what is your intention? You don't pick up a rock and bring it home with you. You need to be respectful of the land, the resources, the spirits that are there, and not do harm. So again, the intention that we go to. Oh, you were there paddleboarding? Yeah, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful, that whole section. The first time I took my kids to that to the Agua Park, or that section, they thought it looked like Lord of the Rings. Like it looked like something out of Lord of the Rings.
Is it?
So I was sharing, like, one of the places that would be on a bucket list for me as far as dark tourism are the catacombs in Paris.
Yeah, that'd be pretty wild for sure.
Just the layers of history attached to it. It feels sad to me, so I don't know why I really want to check out the sad, but it feels sad.
Yeah, and I don't know if they still do it, but they used to have a no photography policy down there, I thought.
I don't know. That's
Out of respect for the catacombs, but
Joanna's just sharing she did the catacombs in Rome. I bet it was intense. She's saying it was intense.
for sure it would have been. Yeah, so I love locations that give back, or they have some agenda to provide memory or restoration. I love all those locations.
And education.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm just trying to call up there, Annabelle. There we go.
So I talk dark tourism. For me, this was the darkest spot, at least story wise, that I've been, I would say. And this actually reignited my interest in investigating because I met a good friend of mine now. I was talking, he's a police officer, and he I met him while doing the job at the hospital, and we were there with the patient for several hours, and we just started talking, and he said, I like horror stuff, I like scary things, and I said, you know what, everyone has a bucket list, and for me at the time, um, I would love to go to the Warrens Museum. I said I've never been. Like they're infamous for their stories. They're doubted like the pioneers of paranormal investigating. I said I love this stuff. If anything, like I want to go there. And
Right.
so he looked into it and he said, you know what, like very few times of the year they actually run tours, but it's very, very small groups. I think there's 40 people maybe approximately, and it
Right.
sells out in a second. As soon as they open it up, it sells out. Like, so I'm at work. We got the date. We figured this all out. I'm at work. And I work as a paramedic for people that haven't met me before or heard me before. So I'm waiting at a base at work because I couldn't get the day off, and I have it on my phone, ready to click it, and then the pager goes off overhead and says, you're going to a call for someone who has died. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Like, the tickets are right here, but I can't, like, I have to do my job, right? I can't just hold on a minute, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So because of this call, I missed out on the tickets, and I was so upset about it. And I was like, man, like the one, I was so excited and ramped up, and I was going to bring one of my other friends that I started doing investigating with, the childhood friend, and I couldn't get them. So I said, I'm out of luck. I'm sorry. And I even emailed, um, Tony Spera, who's in charge of the museum. I said, man, like, I'm sorry, this is my situation. Like, can you please help me out? Please, I'm from Canada. Have sympathy for me. Um, and he's like, and fair enough, right? Like, I'm sure he gets that every time he does it from tons of
Right.
people. So um, I thought I was pretty defeated. And my police officer friend messaged me, said, his sister was able to score 2 tickets, and he had bought tickets for his sister and his brother-in-law to go with him. So he had extra tickets. He's like, you're coming with me. So I was like, oh my God, like
So brilliant.
turn of fates, right? Um, so I went and I've read the demonologist book that they put out. That probably, in my opinion, it's probably their best book that they put out. Um, and it's obviously seen the Conjuring movies. And I thought, you know what, like, I don't know if I'm making a mistake going here. This little thing in the back of my head was like, you're making a mistake. You're making a mistake. You shouldn't be doing this. You're messing with things that are bad. Like, so the whole 8-hour drive down to Pennsylvania, with a car full of people I met literally 2 months before. I'm like, I don't even know if I should be doing this. Like, but I'm like, they're police officers. I gotta trust them if they're police officers. Come on, right? So we went on this road trip, and then they picked my brain about all my experiences I've ever had doing investigating. And he's like, well, and then he propositioned me. He said, if we were to start a team, would you be into it? And I said, you know what? Like, I'll actually consider it. Like, because a police
Right.
officer with a background in investigating and interviewing, I said, that's the perfect person to have on a team for these cases because they know how to get
Right.
through people's stories, right? Um, so we went down and spent the night, and then the next day was the tour, and I was so anxious, like one of the most anxious I've ever been in my life going to this place, because I said, like, I just don't know, like there's some part of me that just doesn't know, because my background was um, through Christianity, going like Pentecostal and Baptist churches, so this is like, don't mess with the devil, like just don't even bother, right? So that part still kind of comes out in me every now and then.
And you're
And we
trusting
got
that
there.
they really are on top of the spiritual protections that they say they are.
They say they're doing it. Like, I have to have faith in them. Like,
Right.
so we went, and then we go. Lorraine was beautiful. She was a wonderful person. I felt one of the more genuine people I've ever met in my entire life. And you hear a lot of stories about like they were con artists, they were this, they were that. Was this real? Was this not? I can tell you that my interaction with her, I felt genuine from my own interaction, but I can't vouch for everything else, right? So
Right.
um, we went there and you started in her living room and she showed you a video of an exorcism that they participated in. It's on VHS, it's all grainy. You're like, I don't know. They claim certain things happen, and you're like, I don't know. The footage it's not 4K Ultra HD, like um and then there was a member in the audience that started kind of, to put it bluntly, started putting on a show. They started yelling out loud, pretending they were possessed. Like
Oh
the
dear.
whole immediately we're like, this is staged. This is like, got it. Like, there's no way like that. And you're going there to experience something. You believe it or you're not. But when you see something, it looks scripted or it looks fake. I'm not gonna like water it down. It looked fake to us, and we're like, is this tour just a big joke? That's the first thought that went through our minds. Is this just a joke, right? Um, and this person did this and was like, don't, nobody can go down there. It's evil. Like, you're bad, blah, and saying a whole 9 yards. And um, but from that event, me and my partner were actually able to make a direct connection to Lorraine because she was so upset about it. She said in her 40 plus years of doing the tour, she had never had this happen. So that gave me a little bit more reassurance in the tour
Right.
and their thing. And my police officer friend went with her and helped her, and I went with Tony, the priest that was there to help this other person that was having this episode. So it kind of worked out because we built some really good connections out of that happening. As an
Right.
investigator, we had her consult on a case I did before she passed, which I thought was super cool. Um, but this place itself, when I was in the tour, it's one of the calmest I've ever felt my entire life. And I was so ramped up and anxious, I thought this was a mistake. When I was down in that museum, I felt like I could have laid on the floor in a sleeping bag and went to bed. Like, I felt so opposite of what I was expecting. It,
So
it was
do you think that your intuition could have been amping up because it was picking up on where it went sideways with that other person? Like,
it could have.
because that created the chaos. So maybe your intuition was picking up on that chaos, not necessarily that inside was, because that's when you know that somebody's got their protections up properly or they're clearing it, they're putting that stuff when it feels that calm. Even though there's
Yeah,
things in the space that um, could potentially provoke you, right, and make you emotionally feel things. Um, if they're doing it right, you'll feel calm, like you could
yeah.
lay down and go to sleep.
And it was also when you have an item that's advertised the most haunted doll in the world, and the
Mm.
story precedes itself, like that's right away you're gonna
That it
get
can
your,
affect your mind,
yeah,
influence
100%.
you. Hi, Michelle.
So
Thanks
I
for being here.
I thought it was interesting, and also on my camera, anytime I took a picture of myself, there was a red orb in every frame, which
Oh,
I don't personally put a lot of weight in orbs, but I thought that was interesting that every picture I took of myself in the museum there was a
that
red
is
orb in it.
interesting.
But yeah,
That is
it was
interesting.
great because you have all these items in there, and this definitely appeals to the dark tourism because um, if you read the backstories and the history of all these items, then you have more of a connection to them as opposed to just walking through and not knowing anything.
Yeah.
So I thought that was very cool. Hi, Michelle.
Teresa Logan is just saying signing up for the investigation at Homer Watson House.
That's great. I hope to see you there. We've been doing it for a couple of years, and Homer himself sometimes visits us, but he usually gets angry with us. But
I've heard that.
we've had a lot of success there. And one of my favorite years, we ran a tour there. There was an art exhibit. It was a tree, and every leaf was hand sewn, I believe. Um, but there's no breeze in the gallery part, and where someone was underneath when we were doing something called a human pendulum experiment, the
Right.
the the leaves
I
would
like
actually,
doing that.
yeah, the leaves right above that person were actually moving, and none of the other leaves on the tree were moving. So it was pretty cool. Like, there's definitely a lot of
Very.
activity. It's hit or miss, but the history of the Homer Watson Gallery is so cool too.
My friend Allie is just sharing. Her partner Kenny says he went to the Hitler family grave in Austria, and they have catacombs there, and he went into them. He said that he felt very comfortable in them, no fear. Those places are definitely part of the dark tourism, right? Then a lot of bunkers as well too.
For sure. Yeah, so that was my Warren's Museum. I don't believe they're doing tours anymore since the passing of Lorraine. Um, but I know he's doing a lot of conventions where he's touring the artifacts, which
Oh
I'm
yeah,
not comfortable with, but to each your own.
yeah.
Um,
I agree with you about
my
that actually.
my interpretation of haunted items or artifacts probably a lot different than the common opinion. So I just think it, my thought was that before, when I went on my tour, Lorraine was still alive, and she said, I believe it was from her mouth, was that when they passed, they were initially going to donate the museum to the local university to catalog and preserve appropriately for the
Mm.
general public and everyone to appreciate. But it is what it is. So, and this was the also claimed to be the number one haunted doll in the world. If anyone's fan of these things, this is a Robert the doll, and this was a fun tour I went on, and it was a surprise tour for me too, which I love surprise tours. So I was in the Florida Keys for a friend's wedding. Don and Lisa that actually joined the paranormal team for Tops. So
Oh,
we were
fun.
down there for their wedding, me and my wife, and we said, "Oh, you know what? Like, there's got to be a haunted tour, something to do to fill up the time." And there's a bus tour. You get on this bus that's decked out all spooky, and you drive around town. They tell you stories about some of the buildings, and the last stop is the museum with Robert the Doll in it. And at the time, I hadn't heard of Robert the Doll at all, my sheltered self. And we get down to the room right before in there, and the guide gives us a briefing like, there's a curse with Robert the Doll. Like, I'm being genuine here. Once we go into the room, you have to follow the set of rules and you'll be okay. And I'm like, oh, we're all like, oh, okay. We have our K2 meters and that they pass out, and like it's for entertainment, and we like spooky stuff. So I didn't know all the backstory at the time. So you walk in, he's like, you have to, as you walk into this room, you have to say hi to Robert. If you don't say hi, it's gonna make him upset. So we all walk in and joking, say hi, and we get around and we said he's in a glass container to protect him, preserve him, and um, uh, but also the other rule is you don't take a picture unless you ask for permission, because that's where the Robert the Doll curse is. If you take a picture without permission, and then you end up with bad luck, and until you write a letter apologizing, and behind them you see that wall of letters, and like, this is legit. Like, it's one thing to tell a story and really ham it up to get people unnerved. But when you have an entire wall, floor to ceiling, with handwritten notes apologizing, and this has happened to enough people to make anyone believe that this is legit now, right? Like, there's so much personal experience with this that, to me, now it holds some weight, right? And I think there was a movie called The Boy that was based on Robert the Doll.
Was it
Um,
based on Robert the Doll?
I believe so. Um,
Interesting.
and what else? But the history behind them is super fascinating. There's even a letter it might have been the letter in the case with him that was from George Bush, the president.
Really?
He was president, actually wrote a note to him, like a letterhead from the president saying like happy 100th birthday. Like this doll's over 100 years old. Um, so like that's how infamous this doll is. Like it's incredible. Like, and this was a total spur of the moment tourist thing we went on, but it definitely falls in like because now on TV shows like Robert the Doll, like if you search Robert the Doll, you'll find a rabbit hole of information. Like
Yeah.
the Florida Keys, like Key West. So, and I
So
think
do you think could yeah, I don't know. I was just could we create those experience like I understand like the curses if you don't ask permission those things can happen but if you take the photo can your own thoughts like oh I didn't take it and I mean we're pretty not saying that it isn't just having the conversation because I tend to go on both sides of this you know sit on the fence and pull it all apart in every way but
like was
can
it
you
pure
create your own bad luck?
coincidence?
Can you create your own bad experience? And were do you know if the experiences were similar? Like, did somebody have like the stove caught on fire? Like, was there a consistent story in how the curse plays
Um,
out for people who don't ask for permission?
I'm unsure of that. I've never looked into it to that degree. Like, and obviously there's so many letters. I'm not going to sit there and read them all in 10 minutes that they give you to kind of be there.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but it's just like anything from relationships, like vehicle problems,
Oh,
like
interesting.
issues, like any kind of bad luck. But there's also the human element. Like we want to blame something else for our bad luck, right? Like we don't want to say like it's just something
Yeah,
bad happened. Well, like it's not my fault, right? It's got to be something else that caused it. So
yeah.
was it a curse or was it just poor decisions? It's hard to say, right? Did my vehicle break down after I saw the doll because I saw the doll or because I haven't changed the oil in the last 10 years, right? Like there's a
Yeah.
conversation.
I just wondered if there's a consistent because if there's a consistent theme, then to me that adds more weight to it, and then I'd really be going. "Ooh." Michelle Plummer. Michelle, I was just thinking, and I was going to ask if you were still listening in and part of the chat. She's saying someone told me the batteries die in their camera as well too. And Michelle, the same. I would. Um, do you know the story? I forget which volcano, which place it is in Hawaii, where if people take stones, if they take rocks or stones from it, then they also have bad things happen, and they have to write an apology note and send the rocks back so the rocks can be returned. Do you know? I don't know the full story, but I know that's the gist of it. I'm trying to remember the place. Have you heard of that too, Grant? Have you heard of this place?
I'd love to go there, but no, I haven't.
Yeah, especially if it's in Hawaii. But
I'd love somewhere warm to kind of investigate. But I lava
it
rock.
is for the god Pele. I thought so. So lava rock, just leave them there. All the rocks, just leave them there. She's like,
Take all the shells you want, just leave the rocks.
yeah. Hawaiian god Pele. That's what I thought. There's the same thing, right? Like when I saw all those notes there, they have like all of these, they've accumulated all of these letters attached to the rocks that they've had to return for people. And usually within a very short period of time. That's the other thing. And that's to me added a lot of credibility to it because it's happening within such a short period of time of them taking the rock that something happens.
Wow, that's wild.
All the rocks, just leave them there. But again, that's that in any of those dark tourism places, like if you don't really understand, don't create an issue for yourself later. Don't and be respectful. Even if you live there, leave them, she says.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely like and there's a lot of investigative perception that if you can't prove things with science, then it must not be true. Um, but the human element to all these things has to hold some validity, hold some weight. And if you have X amount of people experiencing something because of an event, then that has to hold some kind of weight, right? Like when it comes to
Especially
curses and
with
stuff like that.
especially in communities that where oral stories, their oral history is part of their culture. So it's like
Hmm.
generation after generation saying this is how we're respectful and this is what happens if you're not.
This was just another picture back from Sweet Springs. There's an infamous pool. This resort. It started as a resort, and in Cambridge, where I live now, there was a resort almost identical called Sulphur Springs. Is King Street and Fountain, like between kind of Cambridge and
Oh,
Kitchener.
yeah, yeah.
It got torn down because there was a fire and it became unsafe to keep it there. And there's big petitions to create a historical building. But they at the time, the early 1900s, celebrities and moguls at the time thought these sulfur springs were rejuvenating and like the fountain of youth. So this was their natural sulfur spring pool that they had there that people would bathe in, and celebrities and stuff would actually go in there. And the one in Cambridge, like, actually had, I believe, Queen Elizabeth went there once. Marilyn Monroe had
Wow.
been there. Um,
I
so
didn't
very,
know any of that.
yeah, I thought that was super cool that like this was actually a trend for its time and in such a local, close history to that. Unfortunately, it's gone now, but um,
So
there's an episode of
sometimes
Nick
that
Rock
energy still stays with the land, even if they build something else on top of it.
for sure. Like there's an episode, I forget what the show was, but Nick Groff, the investigator, actually went swimming in that pool, and you see all the algae and stuff on top of it. It's not something you want to go swimming in, but for our entertainment purposes, each of us put our foot in the water just to say we had done it. But
Ugh.
we're like, if anyone comes back with a disease, then it's your fault, right? But kind of,
Teresa's asking if there's any place you would warn people away from.
I think that it's hard to say.
I personally feel it doesn't matter what location it is, it's always about your intention going in
Yeah,
and
for sure.
how you approach it.
I'd
Like
warn
empathy and
people.
respect going in, with the intention, if you're investigating, that you're going in with empathy and respect and
For sure.
understanding if you want whatever your culture or belief system is, that you understand what you're going in with and protecting yourself or clearing that energy afterwards as well too.
I'd warn people away from going into buildings that are abandoned without a lot of experience, because if you hurt yourself, then you're really
Yeah.
up the creek with no paddle. So I try to advise people not going into those places that are half burnt down or rotting, because you don't
Yeah.
want to fall through the floor. Um, but my own personal, I would also recommend, this isn't a bash against anyone in their beliefs, but there's some buildings that are actually satanic churches or shrines. I believe there was one on one of Zach Bagans' episodes, the plethora of them, where they went into a practitioner's house, and I would never step foot in there myself. But and then they
Another
decided to pretty bizarre rituals in the home. I'm like, I absolutely would not ever do that myself. So if you
Yeah, I
have,
have a couple of friends that say that it's the same thing. Anything attached to Aleister Crowley, they don't want to have anything to do with. They wouldn't uh,
yeah, so
approach
some
that.
things I wouldn't recommend. You're your own person, you know your limits and your own beliefs. If you're comfortable with it, then go for it. But always be prepared and make sure you take the precautions spiritually to prevent anything kind of bad or malice happening to you. But if you go into those super dark places, you're asking for it, right? Really.
Yep.
And even that comes down to, I always advocate permissions. I think the whole world of the supernatural kind of balances on this rule of permission. So you could go into anywhere. I could go into my neighbor's house and give permission for the worst things to happen, and they could still happen, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't matter where the location is. If you're giving permissions and intentions, any location in the world, you could come up into something bad.
This was great. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on the show and talk about dark tourism. Where I've had it rolling, so it's OntarioParanormal.com, where they are able to connect with you there and find out what investigations you guys have open as far as the charity. Do you have where can they find you on social media as well too?
Yeah, we do have an Instagram page. I'm not sure if we're doing TikTok really. We feel like dinosaurs, so TikTok's not really our major thing we do.
Right, I understand that completely.
Facebook is a big one. Instagram, yes. We do. I don't know if I'd have to run and get it, but
It's
um,
okay.
the Facebook is the main one, and we do when we do events, we have a QR code that you can scan, and then it links it to all of our social medias, which is really helpful.
Yeah.
But right now, we're doing, like I said, we're doing tours like every weekend. Right now, the team is doing an educational seminar in Brantford at the library, and then tomorrow we're going to be at Myrtleville Home in Brantford, which is one of my favorite locations I've ever done. Within 10 seconds of me being in that place, I had experiences last time, so I love that
Wild.
place. That's tomorrow, the Friday the 18th and 19th. We're at the Donnelly Museum in Lucan, the Black Donnellys, which is also,
You
if you
just
like
have to
Canadian
drive down
history.
the road and stuff happens. For me, it did. Anyway, just
Yeah,
driving down the road. It's crazy.
every time we've done tours there, we've had a lot of fun activity, especially in the cabin,
Yeah.
like the house that's there that's been relocated. It's fantastic. Love it. They do a bus tour during the day. All the proceeds go to
Yeah.
local history in the museum. I believe there's lots of tickets still then. Homer Watson Gallery in Kitchener is on October 25th. We're only doing there one night. We used to do several nights, but with paranormal tourism, uh, the Tri Cities has become a hot spot for a lot of groups and a lot of history. So the competition is quite stiff for October and paranormal stuff. So
It is.
we're only doing one night at the Homer Watson Gallery this year, and then the following night on the 26th, we're doing the Military Museum in Brantford, which is
Oh,
great to
cool.
feel like more history, local history to the Indigenous people, the Brants.
So I'm really sorry. We just have
Oh,
to
no,
close this down. So the next, if you are listening, stay.
yeah.
Yeah. So Church of Mavis is coming up next. Thank you, everybody that was in the chat and participating in the conversation. I appreciate all of you very much. And you have been listening to Spirit Switchboard on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM out of New Orleans. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you so much, Grant, for being here. Please check out the Ontario Paranormal website for their list. Please grab your tickets and be mindful of the choices that you make on who and where you share your money, your time, and your energy. And that's all important. Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night. Thank you, Carrie.